Good morning, guys. It's so great to have you here with us this morning. Thank you for joining online church. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday morning so far. I hope you've had a great week. This week, I'm very excited to get to talk about Paul and the storm that shipwrecked him, and how we're going to unpack that a little bit. Welcome first of all. It's great to have you. Don't go anywhere unless you don't have a cup of coffee or some warm black or something. You got to make sure that you can stay awake, stick around. So I think it's going to be awesome. So if you don't get, grab a cup of coffee, grab a blanket, grab someone to come watch with you, and let's get started. Okay, so just a bit of background information. So, the Jewish leaders were trying to arrest Paul. They were trying to get him arrested because he was talking about Jesus, and they didn't like that. They still thought that it was blasphemy to say that Jesus was the Son of God. They wanted to arrest him. They didn't want him to keep spreading this story around. And so, long story short, eventually, it's quite tough to get him arrested because he's a Roman soldier. A Roman citizen. The Romans, they don't really want to arrest him in the first place. So eventually, they get someone to arrest him, and they get him put on a boat and sent to Rome to stand trial. So that's the background info. So now Paul is on this boat. He's in chains. He's cuffed. He's with a bunch of other prisoners, and they're on their way to Rome to stand trial. So we're going to start reading from Acts chapter 27, verse 14. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the northeaster swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Coda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure, so the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. And then again from verse 22. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night an angel of the God to whom I belong and to whom I serve stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island." Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. "Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head." After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or on other pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached land safely. So I want to ask you guys a question. So when we tell people about the times where God has come through for us, like really, really come through for us, where it would have been game over if he hadn't come through at that exact moment. I've said it before, God loves to come through at that last possible moment, probably to show, this really is him and nothing else. But what happens when you start telling people about those times? What happens there? I think it shows people a few things about us. It shows that we depend on God, like really, truly depend on him, not just occasionally like, I pray to God and he gave me a better mark on my test, or didn't let me fall down and hurt myself when I was skateboarding. It's not like that. Okay? This is like when God, I was depending on you to make to get enough money to be able to support my family, or to make sure that we didn't lose our house, or whatever it might be. That's where we really depend on God. When we tell people about that, that starts resonating with people. When we talk about God, it shows that He cares. He's alive and He cares. He's wanting to be there with you. He's wanting to be there in that moment. It shows that He's a God who keeps His promises. When we tell people about the times, man, God really showed up for me in that moment, just like He promised. That's big. That's epic. That's when people start to see that there is more to life than what is just happening in the here and now. There's more than what we can just see and what we can feel. And that is God. We know that. And so they start to slowly see this more and more. And that is beautiful. Going back to Paul, going back to where, he's telling these people about his experiences. He's saying, don't worry, guys. God has promised me this and this. We're going to be okay. Don't worry about it. But you're going to have to listen to me. Like, I know you want to get into that lifeboat, and that makes sense, but trust me, God has spoken to me, and He somehow gets them to understand. He somehow gets them to trust Him as a prisoner. So how is it that this prisoner, now suddenly has pretty much control of the situation? It's not like, he's just making a few suggestions from the back, and then someone standing up and taking credit for it. No, he's like standing up and leading these people, his own captives. How cool is that? And so, it's not like these Romans didn't have a leader. They had a centurion, and we even know he's named in the Bible. His name is Julius, so probably not related to Julius Caesar. Maybe, but I don't know. This guy probably was raised as a child to know everything about leadership, about controlling a force. As a centurion, he was in charge of 80 to 100 men. That's not nobody. That's not nothing. So here's this guy. He's probably got years of experience controlling his men. He's in charge. He's a strong leader. And then this prisoner now starts taking hold of the situation, taking control, and suddenly his men are listening to him. That's the power of God at work, and getting these men to trust Paul. It's his testimony that starts to win over the soldiers, that starts getting them to realize it's the God of the universe, the God of creation, that is actually with them in that moment. Paul, this guy has a job to do. He's wanted somewhere else. God's not just about to let him drown in the ocean. And if they thought about it, if that's the case, the best place that they could choose to be is right next to Paul, and to stick to him like glue. And if I was there, if I was one of those soldiers, I would have been Paul's best buddy. I would have been on him, hugging him all the time, been like, yo man, are we gonna make it out of this alive? And so they start sticking close to this guy. They start listening to what he has to say. When Paul tells them, cut the lifeboat away, I'm sure there were some of them that were like, it doesn't really make sense, but okay, this guy, okay, we'll do it. Because conventional wisdom says, no, keep the lifeboat around. You're going to need that. But Paul said, no, God says we mustn't take the lifeboat. If you want to stay alive, cut the lifeboat away. So they listen to him when he also says, we should eat. We should keep our strength up. And how's this for audacity? He then takes this food, the bread, and like Jesus did, he broke it and gave thanks. But how's the audacity on this guy? Just like Jesus, he doesn't care that the food doesn't technically belong to him. He's showing these guys leadership in that moment, and I'm sure a few of them were like, hold on, I don't know this from somewhere. And Paul, just like Jesus, and just like me, big believer in the ministry of food. And so he decides, these guys need their strength, they need their spirits lifted by some food, something to drink, give them some strength back, and they all start to feel better, and they all start to get a bit more lively, a bit more jovial, having fun, and they start thinking, okay, Paul is actually he's got a few decent points. He's making sense to me now, and I'm sure you guys agree. There is nothing like a good meal to bring people closer together and closer to God. That is a fundamental of the church, and it always has been. Even when Jesus was walking on the earth. And then some of them decide that it would be better to kill the prisoners than to let them try and swim away and escape. And no, because of everything that Paul has said, the centurion says, no, everyone who can swim, make for the shore. Everyone who can't, good luck. Hold on to the bits of broken ship, the bits of wood, and we'll see you hopefully there soon. And just like Paul had said, everyone made it to the island. Everyone was spared. And so, this week, I'm trying to keep this week short, so I'm just going to end it here. I'm going to end with this. If there's one thing you can take from this talk this morning, it's that no one can take away your testimony. No one can take away what happened to you, what God has done with you. If you're still alive, God is still busy with you and your testimony. And it might seem like, man, my testimony sucks, and it's hard and it's tough, but God is still busy with you. If there's still breath in your lungs, God is still busy with you. And so when things start to happen and things start to go wrong, listen to God. Try and remember what you are going through, what you feel in those moments. Try and remember the thoughts that are going through your head. Try and remember how God shows up for you, because that is where you get to show God's power to people. That is where God becomes real. That is where God starts doing amazing things. And where you can show people, listen, A, B, and C. That's like, no one can take that away from you. But maybe you feel like your testimony isn't crazy and up there and amazing and awesome, and it's okay. Everyone is different. That's the way it's supposed to be, just like our testimonies. They're all different. In fact, none of us are meant to be the same. I think it would be a pretty boring world if we were all the same. So it's okay. It really is. It's okay if you weren't converted to Christianity by a lightning bolt and you were made blind and there was a huge bang and suddenly you were converted. It really is okay. A lot of people have a testimony that is less action-packed. That's fine. Mine isn't that action-packed. I pretty much always knew. I always knew about God, but there was a moment where He became real to me. And so focus on those moments. Focus on that part where He became real to you. And share that with people. Because just as everyone's testimony is different, the way we start to listen, the way we start to hear about God is different as well. So while I might love worship music and that's what got me into listening to God, you might like art and paintings or gymnastics, and that's how you fell into God. So we're all different. Hold on to your testimony. Hold on to God and know that testimony is powerful. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you can really take this, keep your testimonies, keep spreading. Thanks, guys. Cheers.